like to call this special council meeting to order. And I want to acknowledge before I go to the clerk for the invocation that the land upon which we're collectively gathering is a traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Anishinaabe people. Madam Clerk, the invocation.
We meet to serve our community and endeavor to be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. Let us be concerned only for what will promote good government. May we bring to our council chamber minds that think and hearts that feel, so that in our deliberations we may display imagination, wisdom, and courage, and the will to do our work for the good of all.
Thank you. There is an addendum this evening, bylaw number 75, 2020, which means the current bylaw 75 will become 76. The additional bylaw appoints Bryce Bailey as a municipal enforcement officer for the town of Fort Erie. Couple of announcements. The one has to do with the issue relative to rats being present in the Ridgeway area. I've spoken to Councillor Butler about this and staff as well, and staff is developing a plan to address that issue, getting some good public feedback with respect to the situation where rats are and potential breeding areas. So we will be working on that as we go forward. I did want to make some comments with respect to the mandatory mask bylaw that was passed on last, I guess, Thursday by the Regional Council. That bylaw comes into effect July the 31st, which is this Friday. There's been a recent upsurge of COVID-19 cases in Niagara over the past 10 days, including a new case in Fort Erie. Niagara's recent move to stage 3 provides greater opportunities for contact between individuals in enclosed spaces and thus greater opportunities for the spread of the virus. The new bylaw covers all of Niagara and requires individuals, with certain exceptions for human rights and medical conditions and children under 5 years of age, to wear a mask or facial covering when inside an enclosed space, such as a store, restaurant, office open to the public, and public transit. For clear information regarding the bylaw, I suggest that you go to the Niagara Region or Town of Fort Erie websites, which will have that information available at their COVID-related subsites. We know that COVID-19 can be spread by those who have moderate or no symptoms, those who come in contact with others, and those of all ages. For months, health authorities and governments have been urging residents to wash your hands frequently, don't touch your face, maintain at least 2 feet or 2 meters distance from others, and when it is not possible, wear a facial covering. As the government moves to gradually reopen the economy and society, these rules continue to be important, but there is now an increased level of contact between people that needs to be addressed. Without assurance of their safety, many individuals, particularly the most vulnerable, will not return to public spaces and commercial facilities, thereby hampering efforts to restart the economy. For those who don't believe that facial coverings are effective in reducing the spread of the virus, or that facial coverings increase the likelihood of infection, the weight of scientific research and the advice of the vast majority of health authorities clearly disagree and confirm that wearing a facial covering or mask does in fact limit the spread of the virus. There are those who say that it is too difficult to learn how to wear a mask or facial covering properly. To assist those who are unfamiliar with the importance of wearing a mask in these times and how to properly wear and care for a mask or facial covering, information will be disseminated by the local and regional government and public health. There are those who say that compelling individuals to wear a mask is a violation of their civil liberties. That ignores the reality that not only do citizens have rights, they also have obligations. It also ignores the fact that society is governed by a plethora of rules that direct citizens and residents of Canada in our daily lives. We're all obliged to pay taxes, wear a seatbelt when we are in a vehicle, wear a helmet when we drive a motorcycle, use our property in accordance with planning regulations, walk our dog on a leash, pick up after our dog, maintain our property to certain specified standards, and the list goes on. As I've stated, the bylaw does make provision for those who legitimately cannot wear a mask. Do not be judgmental if you see someone not wearing a mask or facial covering in an enclosed public space. they may be exempt from wearing one. That does not mean that it is a-okay to refuse to wear a mask in such circumstances when you are capable of doing so, but simply choose to ignore the bylaw. The bylaw will be enforced, but the main objective is compliance. The Niagara Regional Mandatory Mask Bylaw is a temporary measure enacted to deal with the worst viral infection the world has seen in over 100 years. This is nowhere near the scale of deprivation required of millions of Canadians during either of the 20th century's world wars or the Great Depression. Those events lasted years, ruined lives and families, required thousands to put their lives on hold for years or themselves in harm's way, and to make sacrifices very few of us can imagine. I seriously doubt that those brave men and women who served our country in either war or in Korea intended that their sacrifices would enable a few individuals to defiantly refuse to comply with modest steps to protect their own families, friends, and neighbors. Because that is what those who refuse to comply with basic health guidelines during this pandemic are doing, selfishly putting their loved ones and the community at risk. I'm asking all residents of the town of Fort Erie to comply with the provisions of the region's mandatory mask bylaw. As I've said in the past, this is not about any one of us. This is about all of us. I appeal to the better angels in all of us to do what we can to contain the virus, protect our loved ones, and facilitate the resumption of our economy. Fort Erie has been a model for managing this pandemic. Let's not lose the ground that we have gained in our effort to overcome the virus and return to a semblance of normalcy. Let us be thoughtful, respectful, and diligent in fulfilling our responsibilities to each other during this very difficult time. Let us show once again that Fort Erie is truly a caring community. Now, I have had some discussions with Councillor Dubanow, who did wish to make some comment after my announcement. So Councillor Dubanow, I will provide you that opportunity.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, and I appreciate you giving me this opportunity. And just to touch on what you mentioned earlier about the need to be kind to one another, there are definitely, it's a small number, but there are individuals in the community who, for whatever medical reason, trauma related and other things, that mask use is difficult or impossible. And my concern with a family member that is personally affected by this, some of the commentary and some of the messaging I've heard, I'm very concerned about the possibility of individuals in the community taking it upon themselves to shame individuals who have these legitimate reasons. We know that there are many individuals who don't and who are going to take advantage of this. And as the mayor said, we have to, appeal to our better angels and put that aside and do what's right. But I just want to highlight that if you take it upon yourself to go after a person in the community who you think is just disregarding the bylaw, you don't know what they suffer from, what they've been through, what medical conditions they have. And for every individual that you think that you're going to shame them into compliance and you're going to tell them that they can't do this, there's always that risk you run of doing that to someone with a legitimate reason. And for better or worse, we have a framework in this country of taking care of our most vulnerable. And I hope, we've got a great community. I hope everyone just realizes that, and that this is all going to be us working together to do the best we can. And I really appreciate your comments, Mayor Redekop, and giving me the opportunity to speak to that. It's been a concern of mine and why I've struggled with this bylaw. But if we all work together and do what's right, I think everything's going to be okay.
Councillor Dubanow, the bylaw, for clarity, does indicate that an individual who is not wearing a mask in an enclosed space cannot be challenged. And so we're relying upon the residents to, in essence, be on their honor. And so for those who cannot, for various reasons, wear a facial mask or who are under the age of 5, that's all well and good. For those who choose not to be honorable, I guess that's another issue. And
Yeah.
what they're doing essentially is putting those around them at risk. And let's hope that that doesn't happen. I would encourage people to comply, not take a stand on an issue of this nature, which really does involve health and safety. Okay, that takes us to declarations of pecuniary interest. Councillor Dubanow.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I have to declare a pecuniary interest on CAO-13-2020, the agreement between the Corporation of the Town of Fort Erie and JPass International, Inc. for the acquisition of the former Fort Erie Public School site, partial return of land sale deposit and contingency liability funds, as the company I work for is currently in the process of and has performed contracted services for the Associated International Academy.
Okay, thank you. Are there any others? If not, then let's get to the meat of the meeting. And Councillor McDermott, you have the resolution for report CAO 13-2020.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Butler. The CAO 13-2020, an agreement between the Corporation of the Town of Fort Erie and JPass International for the acquisition of the former Fort Erie Public Schools site, partial return of land sale deposit, contingency liability funds. The council approves a return of the land sale deposit provided by JPass International for the purchase of the Fort Erie Secondary School in the amount of $135,000. And further, the council approves a reduction in the contingent liability payment held by the Corporation of the Town of Fort Erie, held as an indemnity as required by the District School Board of Niagara, from $2 million to $1 million. And further, that the Town of Fort Erie returns $1,135,000 of the health funds to JPass International upon receipt of the executed acknowledgement attached as Appendix 1 to Administrative Report number CAO 13-2020.
Thank you, Councillor McDermott. Are there any questions or comments? Then if none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried. That then takes us to consideration of bylaws. Are there any bylaws that anyone wishes removed from the package? If not, then Councillor Butler, would you please proceed with the first and second reading of the bylaw package?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McDermott that the bylaw package containing 73-2020 to authorize the entry into a renewal agreement with Fort Erie Underwater Recovery Unit, Inc., Kinsman Pool, 74-2020 to authorize entry into an agreement with Her Majesty the Queen in Right of Ontario as represented by the Minister of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs under the Rural Economic Development RED program, 75-2020 to appoint Bryce Bailey as bylaw enforcement officer for the Corporation of the Town of Fort Erie is given first and second reading.
All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. That bylaw package is on the floor for any questions or comments. If there are none, then Councillor Noyes, I understand you have third and final reading for the bylaw package.
Yes, I do. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Zanko that bylaws number 73-2020, 74-2020, 75-2020 are given third and final reading to be signed by the mayor and the clerk under the corporate seal.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor of the passage of these bylaws? None opposed, that is carried. That takes us then to the confirmatory bylaw. Councillor Zanko, you have the resolution for first and second reading.
Yes, I do. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Noyes, that bylaw number 76-2020 to confirm the actions of council at its special council meeting held on July 28, 2020 is given first and second reading.
All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. Councillor Lubberts, you have third and final reading for the confirmatory bylaw. You'll have to unmute. You have to unmute.
Wayne, do we not have an addendum?
That was bylaw 75 and we've already passed
Oh,
it.
okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor Redekop. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McDermott. Bylaw number 76, 2020 is given third and final reading to be signed by the mayor and the clerk under the corporate seal.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. That then takes us to Councillor Dubanow's resolution, or what we also know as the adjournment.
Thank you, your worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Noyes, that council adjourns at, wow, 5:16 PM to reconvene into a regular meeting of council on August 24th, 2020.
I like it. All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you.